Welcome to the show. I'm JJ Flazanes.
I'm Doug Sandler, and wow, we have a third person here with us today.
We do, and you know,
is his identity being kept secret though?
We're gonna refer to him as William.
William. Oh wow.
William. Yeah, that sounds good. I like that. I got a thumbs up for that. William and I have, or Billiam.
So not Bill.
Not Bill.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Making sure.
Thank you. Just ruined that one. We were having dinner and talking about all the transitions that we've all experienced, and that would be divorce.
4 of them. Between the 3 of us.
And,
I win.
And, you know, I really love to bring the male perspective to the show because I feel like it's important to represent another point of view. I think that, you know, Doug does a good job, but it's always great to have another person, which, of course, as you know, one of our favorite people is Michael Neely. And so when we are with him, I always bring Michael onto the show. So my friend, William, Bill, whatever you want to call him, Bill and I have been friends for close to 17 years. 2001. So 18 years. We have been friends for 18 years. And a lot of history there. And so I'm proud to say we're still close friends and see each other often, even though he doesn't live in town. And so his voice is important for me in this show because he represents, again, another section of the population of those of you that listen. Because he's a very normally somewhat quiet guy, not like Doug.
But sensitive like Doug.
Sensitive like Doug, but quiet.
Not like me.
So those of you men that I know listen to this show, but you don't ever reach out and let me know you're listening to the show. Some of you do, but the majority of you don't. I think Bill could represent you. And I also want the women, of course, I always want the women to hear a man's point of view because I think in your own relationships, you get skewed by your own triggers and traumas and you're not really listening to what's going on for your partner if your partner's a man. So today's topic is about the signs in retrospect that you could identify that really undermined your marriage.
Missed them all.
Well, of course, because when you're in the marriage, you're not seeing it because you're just reacting from the moment of truth that you're in and whatever that is, and you're not necessarily being proactive or you know, retroactive and looking back to the trajectory that you're on and until it's over. And so I'm going to hand the mic to Bill, and I want Bill, why don't you do a little introduction? You don't have to say anything. Just like who are you? What are you about? Just so people who are listening kind of can put a picture in their mind of who you are. Are you the average guy? Or you know, I mean, I tell them some of your background, like that he was semi-pro golfer, right, or a pro golfer, but you know, and you were in tech, and here you talk.
In tech and married 17 years, almost 16 years, and recently divorced, and just average guy, like to, you know, do average things, nothing great or special. So what was the question again?
Yeah, just to tell people about who you are. You know, you're a golfer, or you were a golfer. You've been vice president of sales for a tech company. Mm-hmm. You've also been an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. You're a dad of 2.
Yep, this is true.
And yeah, and you're just sort of, I guess, if you want to consider yourself the average guy. Doug, do you consider yourself the average guy?
Hell no. No way am I an average guy. But you know, you handed a microphone to Bill, and Bill is not a podcaster like us. And not that that's a bad thing. That's probably actually a good thing. But to hand somebody a microphone and say, just tell me a little about yourself, it's like, oh, fuck. Really, what am I supposed to say? So maybe it would be easier if we ask Bill some questions about himself rather than maybe just say, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I will do a Q&A, and I will use my mic to give to Bill because I would like both the male perspectives. Okay?
Sure.
Okay, so let's just to warm it up. We'll start with Doug.
This is how it's supposed to be done, Billiam. Listen in.
Doug.
Yes, JJ.
In retrospect to either one or both of your marriages.
So many.
what would be one behavior or habit that happened over time that you think undermined your connection or your?
Oh, I got a good answer for this one.
Okay.
I think me being a people pleaser and wanting other people to approve of me led others to feel like I didn't have a lot of backbone. Like anything that you want is fine. Like anything, yeah, sure, that's great. Let's do that. I think oftentimes when you show that you're not a decisive person or you're too easy to get along with, it almost leads for somebody to think, well, who have I married? I haven't married me. I want to hear what your opinion is. So instead, I would say, because I was thinking I was helping the relationship by saying things like, when they would say, "What movie do you want to go to?" "Oh, I don't care. Any movie is fine." Well, what movie do you want to go to? Do you want to go see, the Help? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like that would be a good movie. And I didn't really want to go see The Helps. I just wanted to go see like Star Wars or whatever I wanted to see. But because I was being a people pleaser and because I was trying to be, what do you call it? Considerate. Maybe it was perceived as I just was not a decisive person. So because I was always a people pleaser, I think that probably hurt both of my relationships. I would be so passive when it came to making decisions that I didn't ever state my opinion. And so because of that, both of my ex-wives took control of the relationship. Because I gave them control, not because I thought I was giving them control. I thought I was just being considerate. Like, where do you want to go on vacation? I don't care. Where do you want to go on vacation? Well, let's go to Florida. And I don't really love Florida, but whatever. Okay, we're going to go to Florida to go visit your parents or whatever it was. And I would do all of these things. And then, especially with my first marriage, she would begin to make all of these plans, assuming that I wasn't going to be adverse to the plans. And then I would get involved in a situation, and I'd be like, why the fuck am I here? And I don't even like this situation. Why am I here? Then I would get angry because I'm there, but I wouldn't take it out on her because I gave her the power to make the decision. And so you find yourself years later having done these things over and over and over and over again, and you become the weak one in the relationship. And that becomes a magnifying glass on the entire relationship. So for me, that was one thing that I've done, of many things that I've done in my relationships that probably have not helped me, but more so hurt me.
Okay, that was a good one. Think of another one. I'm going to hand the mic to Bill.
What's the question?
The question was, what habits, patterns happened in your marriage that you think over time undermined it? Now, we did talk about this earlier, so you had 3 already. Hold on, don't talk. Get into the mics in front of your face.
Well, I think the 3 we talked about were a little bit different than this. I think a bad habit is if you're not, I think you have to make the effort to go out. I think once you have kids, you kind of get caught in this cycle of taking care of the kids, taking them to school, doing the homework. It just becomes this constant ongoing pattern you develop. And if you're not careful and you guys don't spend time going out together once a month or twice a month or whatever it is, that in of itself, if you don't do that, becomes a bad habit.
But we
fell victim to that.
But let me add to
time.
that for a second. On the other side of it, when you have someone that is a little bit more laissez-faire and relaxed with their attitude and the schedule, to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to schedule sex, I have to schedule a night out. I'm like, there's no spontaneity in that. So oftentimes, although that was in my first marriage, I never had the chance to go to counseling with my second marriage, but in my first marriage, when the counselor said, well, this is what you should probably do, you should put some you time for the two of you in your schedule. I'm like, well, that just fucks up with all the spontaneity that's involved in it. Can't we have? So it was challenging for me that although I agree with you that you can't fall prey to the routine of never going out, never doing anything, never spending quality time with your partner, it put myself into a situation where I'm like, well, I don't want to schedule that stuff. I want it to be natural. I want us to want to do things together rather than forced to do things together.
Right, and I agree with that. But even getting to the start, to actually start doing that, it really is important, and it's something that definitely affected us.
Agreed.
In our marriage.
Agreed.
Yeah, for sure. We kind of, at some point, and it was the point was once we had 2 kids, for sure. Then planning dates, doing stuff like that. They just stopped.
When do you know, and I know this isn't part of maybe the plan of how you outline the show, but when do you know that you're at the point of no return? When you're at a position where you can't turn back, and I'm trying to be ultra sensitive to your situation because I know that you deal with your ex on a regular basis, and you guys aren't in the best of places, and that's probably pretty typical of where most people are in divorce. I'm very fortunate, at least in my first marriage, that because we have 2 kids together, we're pretty tight. I mean, I wouldn't say we're the best of friends, but I have no issue picking up the phone and calling her. But when did you know you were at the point of no return where you don't think anything that you would have done beyond that point would have enabled you to save your marriage? Or maybe you went to the last day thinking, I think it could still be saved.
Actually, I always was sort of optimistic, even last year in 2018. That there was a chance to potentially save it, but it would have required lots of counseling and lots of effort on both people's part. And so I would actually say sometime within about 3 to 4 months of the actual final judge stamping the divorce decree, I was actually thinking, well, maybe this can, maybe we can actually go to counseling. I was somewhat optimistic.
After the divorce was over, you thought maybe you'd get back together again?
No, before 3-4 months before.
Oh, the judge made it final that you thought you still had an opportunity.
Well, I thought there was a possibility that if we both jumped into counseling and there was a chance we could save it, for the kids. But what I've come to find out
for the kids. Again, we talked about this earlier today, that it's always challenging when you do it for the kids, because then to a certain degree, you're like, well, that doesn't make you any happier. Just because you're with the kid, you're doing it for the kids.
So I'm the only one here without kids currently. And now on one hand, lots of people discredit me because of that. So they'll say, well, you don't know because you don't have kids. However, I'll say on every other front, normally I can have sort of a understanding of what's going on. I don't need to be having kids to understand the dynamics. I was a kid, and people are people, and psychology. So because I don't have kids, I look at something from a different vantage point. I'm not in it, right? And even in my own marriage, you can step in and out of being an observer to see how it affects others or how it's really affecting you. And you get the lesson when you're supposed to learn it. But I know a lot of people, clients, friends, acquaintances, that stay together for the kids. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, and I want to address it because I think people think I'm doing a good thing. I'm doing a good thing by staying for my kids. And I would say that maybe for some kids, it might be a good thing, or it might be not a bad thing. But on the flip side, I know lots of people who stay together for their kids, and their kids now get the message that relationships aren't about real love or compromise, that people aren't supposed to like each other, that if there's fighting going on or some kind of power struggle, that they're supposed to play a certain role. Like, I look at it and think, you are screwing up your kids more than if you were to actually be happier by leaving your marriage. And by for certain people, not putting up with the abuse of the other person, because now you're teaching your children that it's okay for someone to talk to you that way or for someone to treat you that way. And so from my point of view, there are certain situations where that your desire to stay with the kids or to stay together because of the kids is actually hurting them more.
And I would even take it a step further in saying that if you can show your kids that even though the relationship between the two of you didn't work out, you still have the ability to get along and be civil. I would challenge either one of my kids or my ex-wife to remind me of any time I ever said a negative word to my kids or to anybody in my family about my first ex-wife, because I didn't want to tarnish the feeling. If at anything, I don't think I would have tarnished it, but I don't. My kids never heard me say a negative word about my ex-wife. So again, I look at it and say, there is some reality in, hey, everything doesn't work out sometimes. And if you can still maintain a positive relationship with someone that you've split with and show your kids that you can do that, there's a lot of strength in that if you handle it properly.
Well, I'm a big believer in the relationship. So my ex and I will be friends because there's only like one ex who I dated for half a minute that I'm not friends with. There is not one person that I was in relationship with that I invested my time and energy into and emotions into that I still don't have a connection to in my life. Now, I know that's not everybody, and I understand this has been a topic on the show before. I do believe that there is a moment in time where you can say, we just weren't a fit, or we helped each other grow in this way and it was time to move on. Because if you're in a relationship for a significant amount of time, not having, and I know there's hurt feelings. I'm, thinking of you, Bill, right now. There's hurt feelings, there's misunderstandings, there's resentment, there's anger, there's frustration, there's a lot of things going on. But eventually, because you have kids, there a desire for you to be friends?
There has to be, especially if you have kids. You have to, because you're going to be dealing with the other party for a long time, and especially depending on how old the kids are. So when I was saying try to do it for the kids, it was only the first time myself or my ex were having to deal with the situation. So we could only kind of deal with from our own frame of reference. And my frame of reference was, well, we got married, we have kids. The best thing I thought was to try to figure it out for the kids' sake to keep the family together, essentially. Mother, father, same house. On the flip side, you could flip a coin, and there's 50% that get divorced with kids. So we were also able to take a look at other couples that we knew of that they got divorced, and they had kids similar ages, and we were able to point out to our kids these other families that were in the same exact circumstances that we were about to enter, and show them that, hey, it's not as bad as you might think. And so that was kind of good, actually, to have different, not role models, but different examples of people that have gone through the same thing to show your kids. So I don't know what the answer is to try to save it, or how long you should try to save it on behalf of having kids.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions.
Okay.
Do you think you stayed in your marriage longer than you, quote unquote, should have for your sake because of your kids?
Yes.
Okay. And in retrospect, since that's what the topic of today's show was, and you mentioned about time, on a date night or spending time together, what would be maybe another behavior that you look back on and think, well, that didn't help our marriage either, and that undermined our connection over time?
Just a little, not any one gigantic thing, but probably a series of little things that over the course of time, you chip away at those little things that you and your partner did
and when
marriage.
And when you're in the middle of it, and let me just talk just from my personal experience, when you're in the middle of it, you don't realize that these things are detrimental to your relationship. So, when you do things like, and go back to my first example, when you are a people pleaser and you want to have your spouse really, what you're thinking is, oh man, I'm going to be really easygoing, and my wife is going to love me because I'm going to be easygoing. And so that first time that they make plans, they're like, okay, well, he's a pretty easygoing guy, and he lets me do what I want to do. Second time, it's like, man, I wish he would say something. Third time is, does the guy have the ability to make a decision? The fourth time is, fuck it, I'm just going to make the decisions. I'm not even going to ask him anymore. Fifth time, I start get angry because she's not asking me my opinion on it. And this whole thing was my fault to begin with. So it's like you said, Bill. It's just one thing at a time, one little tick off the clock every time they do it. And by the time you turn around and realize it, you can't take it back because it was your fucking fault to begin with. So it's like, holy shit, I'm the one that messed up on this.
It's too late by then. Yeah, just little things in my own personal observation that, helped keep the marriage going, helped create affection, helped us stay connected. Little things got chipped away at over time that not any of them by themselves made a huge difference. But then when you add them all together, then they actually have a negative impact.
So let's talk about what those little things are, because you named them earlier.
Yeah, well, one would be like working out together. It's not a huge deal, but it's time together. It's being athletic together. It's doing something together. It's supporting each other in, that endeavor.
And I can remember just talking about that as soon as you said working out together. I can remember in my second marriage that I would always really, really cherish that time in the morning, that like 6 a.m. to 6:30 time when you're just waking up and, the new world is coming to you in the course of your day. And my second wife, who was working on herself, and I, encouraged her to work on herself because she wanted to, she would go to the gym first thing in the morning. So that would completely wipe out that time that we had together. And not that it was every morning, but it was some mornings, and it was over a certain period of time. That was one of those little things that just chipped away. It was like, I like quality time also. It would be nice to have that quality time in the morning. And so the gym, although it was a self-improvement thing for her, it probably chipped away a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but you weren't going with her. What would have happened if you would have gone with her? See, Bill and his ex, I remember because I'd go with them. We'd all go together when I'd come to visit. And that was a routine that they had that, of course, I got to participate in as well. And I do remember that was very positive because, again, you're working on something towards your health and your well-being, and it's a common interest, and it was quality time. And since you've been here for the weekend with us, Bill, you've learned that your number one love language is quality time.
This is true.
Did you know that prior to this weekend?
No, I did not. I've learned quite a few things this weekend.
What else did you learn, Bill?
Oh, boy. Lots
This
of
was
things.
this was like a weekend of therapy. It's amazing. Like Bill stepped, he had no idea. He thought he was just getting in the car,
To
driving
decompress,
for 5 hours to get here to hang out with us. We had a therapy session in the Mustang today as we were driving up the down the coast of California.
Which was quite good, actually.
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah.
JJ and Bill have had many late afternoon and evening conversations just about love languages, and it's amazing all of the education that Bill has gotten since he's been here. And Bill, there will be a bill for you on the way home.
People pay a lot of money
Oh
for
my gosh.
my advice. So no, but seriously, let's wrap up this conversation about other things, because I know we had a couple others that came up for you that when you look back, you said intuitively you knew was a bad decision. It was going to undermine. Now you didn't know that your love language quality time, but if we look back, all the little things you're talking about were the things that took away quality time.
Yeah, and even in these things, some of them, like the exercise one, it's almost a compound effect because the act of exercising in of itself leads to good things, right? Mentally, emotionally. Another one would be, we used to set aside some time to watch comedies together at night. 1 hour to watch a couple funny shows, Seinfeld, King of Queens, whatever. But anyway, so we would sit together to watch comedies together. And again, it's not only the time you're spending with that person next to them watching it, but then it's also the residual side effect of laughing, which is also good. So it's sort of when you lose that 1 hour event, you don't just lose the connection of you two being together, but then you potentially also lose the positive effects of the laughing.
So, question. So, do you think that this was a cause and effect kind of situation where the fact that you weren't watching the shows together, what came first, the chicken or the egg, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Did you lose the gym together and the TV together because your relationship was going south, or did your relationship go south because you stopped watching and doing those things together? And it's not just those couple things; it's compound effect of many, many things like that. What do you think happened?
Yeah, I think it was. They were the same, in sync. I don't think there was one before the other. I think they both slid at the same time. I think they were in parallel with each other, honestly. I don't know if I could identify the difference.
So one of the reasons why I stayed in my marriage longer than, it was perfect timing for me, and I don't know if you think it was perfect timing for you, or Doug, for you in your first marriage, but the reason why I know it was perfect timing for me is because I had to be okay with what effort I had made, and knowing that I had tried everything that I could, knowing that I'd given it my all, feeling like I'd left no stone unturned, that I had really worked the system. That was important to me for my own sense of self-respect, that I didn't quit, that I didn't give up, that I stopped looking for an answer, or, because I'm a good problem solver. So when I can't solve the problem, I'm trying to find more data to solve the problem.
Well, you have the benefit, though, of watching or listening to JJ Flazanes actually do her thing, because I'll tell you, if I had the benefit of having someone like you in my life as a friend, or as a mentor, as a guide, as a counselor, as a whatever you want to call whatever you've done, support mechanism for me over the last year, I think things would have been totally different in my first marriage, because I think that I went through that entire first marriage, and we've talked about this on other shows, just completely unconscious. So for me, even getting out of that marriage, I was just fucking unconscious of the entire, and I would say the same thing happened in the second relationship too, although she was the reason that it ended. At least on the tail end, in getting support from counselors, I was able to at least think in my mind that this wasn't about me. This was totally about her. The marriage ended not because of anything that I had done. It's because she was not able to fill whatever void that she needed, or heal whatever wound that she had. But in that first marriage, for sure, completely unconscious. And see, you have the ability to say that that you did everything that you could in that marriage that was up to you, and you should be proud of that you can acknowledge that. I feel a little bit sad that I didn't know enough to even know to do any of those things. So for me, I feel a little bit kind of guilty about it. I mean, I don't think guilt is the right word. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but I feel more responsible because I didn't even know. It's like, oh, I'm just not happy. I'm not happy. You're not happy. I'm not happy. Why are we doing this?
And that is where a lot of people live, which is why I do the show, which is why I try to educate people, and that is another reason why I fought so hard, because I basically said, look, this is textbook. I mean, I remember handing him the Getting the Love You Want book and saying, please read the first 20 pages. It literally illustrates exactly what we're going through, that I think you think is really bad and wrong and too hard and abnormal. And I'm trying to tell you that this is normal. This is what happens in relationship. And so we are textbook in relationship. So that means it's fixable. So back to, I want to round out this last piece, because I know we've talked about, the three of us today and this weekend, about some of the other behaviors. In retrospect, if you were to look back right now and give yourself advice, what would you say to yourself in the first couple years of your marriage? Don't lose sight of this, or speak up about this, or what advice would you give yourself, and in turn anyone else who's listening, whether you're in the same situation, you've gotten out of the same situation, or if you're, God forbid, if you're 20 or 25 or 30 and you're about to get married, or about thinking about getting married, and really, being clear about the kind of commitment you're ready to make and understanding all that's involved. If you listen to this show, you are a conscious person. And if you're a conscious person, that means you have a responsibility to do some work on yourself and be conscious of your partner. You're not going to fly through this numb and stupid and then get to the end and say, well, what happened? You know what's happening. You've been a fan of the show, so you've listened to some of the relationship shows that we've done, and so you're pretty clear. So Bill, let's start with you, and then Doug. What advice would you give yourself now, knowing what you know now, back then?
Don't give up on those little things that we did that were affectionate, or private small talk, or things that helped us stay connected. Don't give up on those little things. Continue to do them, or if you do give up on them here and there, make sure you replace them so you still have a connection somewhere else. Honestly, now looking back and now moving forward for myself, honesty and communication are the two bedrocks that must be there, period. End of discussion. Moving forward, you have to communicate. You have to be honest. Those are deal breakers for me. And really, if I think now looking back, if we could have jumped into some sort of couples, I don't know if the retreat's the right word, or just something fun and spontaneous that would help couples continue to stay connected or talk to each other or understand their different languages like we've gone over this weekend. Things that are a little more proactive instead of waiting until you're in trouble and then going to see a counselor or whatever, maybe being a little more proactive. That would be what I would say.
What I would add to that is, I completely agree with that, but what I would add to that is know that when you're brand new in this relationship, that every love language is being brought to the forefront. And no matter what your spouse does or your significant other does, you love it because everything is brand new. So number one, I would say, while I want you to immerse yourself in falling in love, because love is such an amazing thing, know that that initial honeymoon phase is going to wear off. It's going to wear off no matter how. If it might take 3 years, it could take 6 months. That initial honeymoon phase will wear. You have something to say, JJ, apparently.
Has it worn off, honey?
For us,
Yeah.
I think that initial like bump of adrenaline, yeah, I think that's worn off, but I don't think it's worn off in a bad way. I think it's matured into a better relationship when you get to know, when you can finish someone's sentences, and you can't do that in the beginning of a relationship.
Well, we kind of did that in the beginning of the relationship, but because we have similar moons. I did get you. I did know you. We were friends first. It wasn't like we just started dating. I did know you for 6 months.
I think that infatuation that grows into a solid love grows into a mutual respect. And I think that mutual respect is essential in building a long-term relationship. So just know that as you're listening to this, if you're in a new relationship, just know that this part that you're in right now, it's going to mature into something else. And what you don't want it to mature into is Godzilla or King Kong on top of the Empire State Building. You want it to mature into a relationship where there's mutual respect and you guys both know each other. The other thing that I want to say that, and Bill was hitting on this also with the counseling and the retreats and that kind of stuff, know that relationships are work. Do not go into it thinking that you're going to go beyond that first, second, third year with the same type of enthusiasm. There's going to be work. There's going to be things. The toothbrush is going to be, the toothpaste, the top is going to be left off the toothpaste thing. The toilet seat is going to be up. The cat hair is going to be wherever it's going to be. I'm going to be too neat. You're going to be too much of a slob. All of the shit that goes on in the lives of me and JJ, all of that stuff is going to happen. You've got to look beyond that and know how amazing the person that's sitting, in this case, right across the table from you is to you, to me. Know that person is your partner. And if you want that person to be your partner, know that you're going to have to work at it. Don't be a fool and think that you're going to be able to get to 10 or 15 or 20 years into a relationship without there being some challenges and without there being work. You have to work at it. There's going to be work and there's going to be shit that you don't want to do. But isn't that like the beauty of a good relationship?
Well, it's funny that when people think of like education or getting a job, if you said you have to take some tests, you have to do some training, everyone would say, of course we do, because that is expected for me to excel in my career to get paid. Why do we not have the same expectation for relationships? Who taught you how to have a relationship with another person besides your parents?
Don't stop her, she's on a roll now.
But really, it's like Bill's nodding his head vehemently here, because it's true that everyone, especially, and it's not just men are resistant. It's because there are a lot of men who actually want to work on their relationships and their women don't want to work on them. Now, not necessarily my audience. It's more the women want to work on their relationships and the men don't, is my guess. I know there are men out there who are listening who you fall into the category of the more proactive, aware, conscious guy. But generally speaking, I know it's this idea. And actually, speaking of, we mentioned on the show a couple weeks ago, Terry Real and his book, The New Rules of Marriage. Well, I think I've landed Terry Real to come on the show.
Wow, that's very cool.
So he's going to be coming on the show. And The New Rules of Marriage talks about the growth of our ideas of relationship, where if we look back to our parents and our grandparents, did they want the depth of connection that we want? Did they want the intimate, knowing best friend, finish your sentence, hold you tight?
No, they
that we
wanted
didn't?
dinner on the table at 6:00 when the man walked in the door, and the man wanted a woman that would be subservient to him, and that's what was expected 50 years ago. That's just not how it is today. So get real.
Well, and that's the point of his new rules of marriage, is that women, not all women, but most women have moved far beyond that, and men have moved far beyond that in terms of what they want, but haven't changed their behavior and how to get it.
That being said, guys, when JJ and I have talked about this many times on the show, women are ovens, men are blowtorches. Understand that, but guys, romance your woman. Put yourself in a position where you can actually enjoy the company that you have, the emotional bond that you have created between the two of you. Just enjoy that. Women that are listening to this, when your man comes home, every once in a while, have something sexy on so that you guys can just fuck. I mean, that's what a guy wants sometimes. Sometimes that's what he wants. Woman, go ahead.
It's a give and take, and again, that's part of the reason that understanding love languages, understanding masculine, feminine energies, understanding these things helps you to give and take in an equal way, so that one person isn't feeling like they have to give to the other person in an unbalanced fashion, and there's no resentment. So when it comes to relationships, and I wanted to do today's show because we've got, again, a bunch of us divorced. I'm not divorced yet, but these divorcees sitting
Will you
around
hurry
the
up?
table. I know.
We got shit to do.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, I'm working on it, but it's that understanding that you can look back on your relationship and maybe, Bill, do you have regrets, or do you just have new awarenesses?
Regrets over the marriage, and why? Well, of course. Millions of them, yeah. And new awarenesses, yeah, both, for sure.
Okay, so most of us, moving forward, let me ask you, what will you do differently?
Oh, boy.
What will I do differently? Well, again, I have to be a little more, in my own
Don't
case.
get married again.
I have to be a little bit more maybe selective with my own choosing skills. Differently, again, I think one of the first things, once you get beyond X number of dates.
Hold on a second. We talked about this morning. You said that here come the qualifiers. What's the relationship with her dad, right? Wasn't that one? What's the relationship with her?
This is JJ talking now.
Okay, so
this was good though, JJ. You had that was really solid
Bill
advice. It
and
was like
Bill
you
and
needed a questionnaire before you.
We came up with 3 qualifiers. One, and we're not in this order because he's not sure how he's going to deliver these questions yet. That he's going to
be a written form
everybody
triplicate,
off.
or how's it going to be written?
So the first
Done.
one really is the relationship with her father, and this was out of my own experience, and also moving forward, recognizing that there are some damage that it can absolutely be not undone, but it can be healed, but the person has to want to participate in that healing.
But I also think it's what's the relationship with your mother too, because
for a man. So
well, wait. If I'm the man asking this of my potential partner, I looked at, and I'm looking at both of the relationships that I've had. My first wife had great relationships with both her mother and her father. My second relationship had a very, very challenged relationship with her mother, had a better relationship with her father.
Right. And so that is an indicator. It is an indicator, absolutely, of dealing with things or how to be feminine or that nurturing aspect. But there is how to deal with men, from a man's point of view, and vice versa.
All right, so yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you here. So that's one question.
You hijacked it, by the way. You didn't derail.
Sorry,
you hijacked.
That's a good one. That's
okay.
One.
We do it all the time. So the first one was about the woman's relationship with her father, and that she has either a working or a good, and she wasn't necessarily abused or abandoned. And okay, so that's going to be number 1. Number 2 is love language, and what their love language is. And number 3,
and wait, before you move beyond that, though, It's understanding what their love language is. It doesn't have to be the same love language that you are. But more so understanding what your potential spouse, potential partner, potential boyfriend, girlfriend, or girlfriend in this case, what her love language is. And if it's something other than yours, it's okay. You just have to be aware of what that love language is.
Right, because when you fall in love, and we talked about this on the episode with Harville Hendricks and I, that when you fall in love, you like forget all this. You become crazy. And so like Doug said, you all the love languages are usually used in the first 6 to 12 months of any relationship anyway. You get gifts, you spend quality time, you do acts of service, you have touch, you have words of affirmation. It's all there. And then after about a year, it really sort of settles into what their primary is, which might not be the same as yours. And so if you're clear on that and you're both willing to learn another language, then you can maintain this sense of feeling loved in the relationship equally and in a balanced way.
I'm looking forward to the day that you actually use my love language towards me.
So I don't compliment you at all. I think I spent a whole episode. I think the episode last week I was saying what a good job you did and how proud of you I was and how relieved I was that you were so okay.
I love anybody that we get involved in a business relationship with. JJ reminds that other person, hey, I just want to let you know, Doug's love language is words of affirmation. And from that moment on, anybody that has not treated me with positive words all of a sudden starts sending me all these positive words. It is so funny. And in the two business relationships that we've worked on together, both of those people have come out of the woodwork with their words of affirmation. And you know what? It fucking works, even though I realize that they're doing it to me. I'm like, you're doing this to me. Are you doing this to me legitimately? Or do you actually believe this, you know? So
you don't care. You just want the words of affirmation.
I don't
Let's
care.
Be true. Let's be real here, dear. You just want the words.
And you know what it is? Even if you don't give it to me, I give it to me too.
You give it to yourself so much. I don't even need to talk.
So I will say,
you still want me to affirm you.
I love you, JJ. I love you, and I know you love me too. I don't even
Which
give her a
leaves no room for me to respond. So you're just gonna have to live with that.
It's so great.
So Bill's third criteria
that was two, right?
Is going to be he's going to somehow figure out a way to ask for all of their birth information so he can send it to me to do their astrology so I can do an astrological compatibility.
Oh my God.
To start to see whether or not these work. And
this is like a 4-week process here. What is the turnaround on all of these things, Bill?
I don't know. I have to say that I was very skeptical of the astrological chart and all that stuff. But if you actually start to read it and then you go back in time and you start looking at who are your closest friendships or relationships, and you start to match their birthdays to yours, you start matching the charts to them, to you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's really a little bit stunning.
And he spent the last 2 days reading that book that JJ put in front of him a couple of nights ago, and it is amazing that he is totally into it.
Well, I already was. This isn't actually something new. This is something that's been over time. JJ just keeps adding different elements to it, but my own personal view is, why would I necessarily start off with my own sign that's, say, opposite from someone else's sign? Why am I going to enter into that potential relationship with all the pitfalls?
So in the bar, what's your sign?
We're not saying.
So with that said, yes, there's been new criteria. So that is something that Bill has learned in his last relationship. Doug, what have you learned?
Who's your daddy? Who do you love? Who's your daddy? Who do you love? And what's your sign?
How do you love?
Oh, who's your daddy? How do you love? And what's your sign? If we have to break it down into, that could be a good title for this episode. Who's your daddy?
Is that you?
Oh my gosh. So what was the question again? Sorry, I lost.
What in retrospect, what did you learn prior to me coming out of both marriages?
Oh man, there's so much. It's so much. I think, and I'm going to say this, and I don't mean to say this in a selfish or self-centered or I-centered way, but the reality of it is, you need to be happy. You need to be happy. That's what I learned. You need to be happy. You need to find happiness, and happiness is not found in another person. You need to find happiness on your own. When you can be happy in your own skin, with your own self, with your own thoughts, with your own beliefs, with your own feelings, not blaming other people, never saying the words, "you hurt my feelings." Fuck those words, man. I have never heard those words said so much more truly than when you had mentioned that to me and said, I'm not responsible for your feelings. If I ever say those words, you hurt my feelings, or if those words ever come out of anybody's mouth, stop, slap yourself, and figure out what it is what wound is it that you're now diving deeper into. So I would say you got to be happy. I mean, that's one thing I've absolutely learned.
And I did a show with Rachel Kaplan. She is
the Healing Feeling Shit Show.
The Healing Feeling Shit Show. She is coming on the show, and I was on her show. And she's got a thing with the word happiness, and I'd agree. There's a lot of people that think the word happiness is something you have to attain, and it's sort of this distant, like out there thing that you have to find. And here's the reality of happiness, and she and I agree on this. She just says it differently because of the work that she does with people that get really down on themselves because they're not happy. You have the ability to be happy at any moment of your life. It is a culmination of what you're focused on, what story you're telling yourself, and what belief you have underneath that. All of those elements are changeable. So if you look at a situation and decide that it is you are being treated this way because you're not worthy, or you're overweight, or you don't make enough money, or you're not smart enough, this is you deciding a story that may not be true, which means it's going to lead you into feeling badly, which is not happiness.
And the easiest way to determine that is look at someone in your life that calls you complaining about somebody else. And I love my mom, and my mom, I'm sure that if she heard this, she would probably argue this point, but my mom looks at the negative in so many situations that I'm like, Mom, why are you framing the story this way? You're looking for negative. If you are looking for positive or you're looking for negative, you will find it. That's just reality of the law of attraction. Whatever it is that you're looking for, you're going to find it. So yes, your happiness is already there. You just have to reframe it and tell yourself a different story.
And what gets in the way of that for a lot of you is your astrology, is your traumatic experience in life, and therefore that has shaped your belief about what's possible for you, or your deservability of a spouse or a situation or a life or money or a career. And so, but know that, I'm just letting you know in case you're listening to this and you have depression and you're feeling a lack of you're feeling like hopeless and you're frustrated and you don't know what to do, and you're telling me, JJ, no, I'm not happy and I can't find happiness. I want to be happy, but I'm not. I'm just telling you that here's the root of all of that are these three things: what you're focused on, what your beliefs are, and again, your predisposition to emotion in the first place, which would be the astrology piece. And that is one of the things that the book that Bill's been reading that I've talked about on the show many times, and those of you that have come to a live event have known this book. It's called Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller. Jan Spiller has since passed away, I believe, a year and a half ago. I tried to get her to the last Releasing What Weighs You Down, but she is deceased. And I could
make it a little bit more challenging, but still possible.
Still possible. I could have someone come channel her, sure.
Yes.
But the book is literally all about your true node placement, your north node, and that is your soul sign. That is the life lesson in this lifetime. And Bill's literally been reading this book for the last 2 days. He has read this entire chapter, which is very long, for 2 days. He took it to the beach. He meditated on it. He read it yesterday. It's been a pretty eye-opening thing. And it's not always going to be 100% accurate for all of you, but what it does is give you at least a little bit of insight as to what your predisposition to lean towards. But it's not a death sentence, and it's not an excuse. It's information that says, okay, this is how I am. And if I want it to be different, here are the things I need to work on in order to work with this energy to make myself better. Because happiness is a state of mind, a state of being, and a state of belief that is always available to you every moment of the day. It's, again, are you thinking thoughts? Are you creating momentum in a negative way, in a negative direction that take you further away from who you really are? Or are you believing and trusting in the process and saying, this is all for my greater good, that I decided to incarnate in this lifetime. I've chosen all of this. I'm responsible for all of this. It doesn't mean I'm stupid. It doesn't mean I'm dumb. It doesn't mean I'm unworthy. It just means I'm trying to learn something and grow and expand. And when you can look at life from that vantage point, you're not going to be depressed. You're not going to be unhappy. And you're going to take more responsibility, hopefully, for the things that you need to do, the discerning, self-care, self-respecting things that you do to keep yourself, in a place of self-love and respect. And that's really what it comes down to. So, any final words, guys? I feel like I want to cap this off today's show with what lesson? I'll start with Bill, actually, because Doug talks more. So we'll let him. You want him to go first. So, what
boy.
lesson from both or one marriage did you learn that you have appreciation for now that you know you couldn't have learned otherwise?
Wow. Well, I'm going to go back to that people pleaser part of my personality and the way that I take action. It's that I appreciate that both of my spouses, who are now, I was going to say deceased, but now divorced, that they didn't kick the shit out of me earlier because I deserved it, because I would have deserved it, because the moment that you're like all wishy-washy, it's like, that's not how you are as a guy. That's not how you are when you pick that girl up to go on your first date. That's not how you are when you decide. I can remember with my second wife, I remember that first time that I had really seriously considered that I was going to see her. I said, I'm going to kiss you. And she says, no, you're not. And I said, yes, I am. And I didn't force myself on her, but I literally leaned through her car window and kissed her. And I can recall that moment. It was like, yes, I was totally being a man in that moment. And so many times throughout my relationship, I recall being that man and being in charge and being that person that I should have been the entire way through the relationship. And I know that there were moments in my first marriage that way. I just can't recall what they are. So I would say you've got to stop not being yourself. Yourself means be bold, be who you are, be a man. And sometimes I get a little bit sensitive when I feel like I'm not being a man, especially in this relationship, because it's the one that we're in now. But you just, you have to realize that oftentimes you got to come back to what is your strength, who you are, what you're all about. And for me, it's not being that people pleaser person. It's being true to myself and who I am, being bold. And that's how I am in business. Why wouldn't I be that way personally? Why do I run from that? Am I afraid that there's going to be that you're going to leave me because I'm not not pleasing you by making by not allowing you to make decisions? That's bullshit. But that's the reality of it. That's where my fear is. So go be more true to yourself.
For myself, I would say I would go back to exactly what I said are the two most important words for the next relationships for me, communication and honesty, because to me, those two words boil down and break down everything that can be fixed using communication and honesty or be broken by not using those two. So if I could go back in time and there was more communication and honesty, then, our marriage could have been saved, because then all those little things that get swept under the rug, they don't get talked about, and then resentment builds up year after year after year, and then by the time you both figure it out, it's just too late. So those are the two words I would continue to push.
And I don't know if we mentioned this, but Doug's first marriage was almost 20 years, and Bill's marriage was almost 17 years. Yeah. So, they both spent a significant amount of time in relationship, and they both agreed that the majority of it wasn't necessarily great, that the sort of decline happened sort of quickly, but, no one kind of caught hold of it or tried to, because you have kids and things happen and you're working. And again, it goes back to, it's really important to make yourselves a priority somewhere in this, especially with our new desire about relationship. If you just want someone to pay your bills and show up, and not talk to you, then you're probably good. You can find that. But if you're someone who wants intimacy, you want a best friend, you want someone to share your life with on a deepest level, you want great sex, you want tender moments. If you want all of that, then more needs to be paid attention to, and you can't expect that when you absolutely do not invest any time into getting that. You can't let life happen. You have to decide to make something, schedule yourselves in a way and put yourself as a priority and learn something and grow. And of course, we've talked about this every time Doug and I do one of these shows. We are offering, and we're going to be doing a couples retreat. It's over New Year's Eve. And it's for those of you that recognize that you'd like more out of your relationship. It is not for those of you that are on the brink of divorce. It is not for those of you that sleep in separate rooms and don't like each other. Unless you're sleeping in separate rooms temporarily with the understanding that you're going to get back into the same room. But if one of you believes that you'll never sleep together again, not the right couple to come to our retreat. Okay, we have it. We have it. If you want to sign up to be considered for the couples retreat and fill out the questionnaire, you can go to jjflizanes.com/couples retreat. Again, that's jjflizanes.com/couples retreat. It's up and it's ready. To qualify you, we're only taking 4 or 5 couples. It's in Palm Springs. It'll probably be somewhere like December 29th through January 2nd, approximately. And we'll be doing everything from astrology to tantra to nonviolent communication to imago work to salsa dancing, wine tasting, cooking, meditating. Probably there might be a little bit of nap, some hiking in there. Well, maybe not in Palm Springs. There will be some pool time and hot tub time.
Wow, you just named like 12 things really fast. Those are great things. I want to go.
That's really great because you're going to be going.
I just sent my email in to jj@jjflizanes.com. I want in.
So if you're aware enough and conscious enough to recognize where your relationship is headed and you want to change course, we're going to give you some tools to do that. So I hope you would check it out. And of course, like always, we'll see you here next week.
Bye, everybody. Love you.
And thanks to Bill.